Hello, 5th and 6th grade. We are going on to the next chapter in science. We are on 12.7, clusters and constellations. So as we continue talking about stars, we're going to start talking about patterns of stars that we can see in the sky. I have Sam, the science cat, with me today. We are opening to page 150 in your science book, Clusters and Constellation. A little bit of vocab before we go on to reading. Star cluster, a group of stars held together by gravitational attraction. Multiple star systems orbit tightly around a central point. In addition, larger groups of tightly bound stars may be attracted to one another by a force of gravity. When this gravitational pull keeps stars together, a star cluster is formed. A star cluster is smaller than a galaxy, which is a huge collection of stars, gases, and dust clouds. Star clusters give a galaxy its distinct shape and intricate pattern. There are at least two types of star clusters. An open star cluster may contain as little as a dozen or as many as a few thousand stars. A globular star cluster is densely packed concentration of several thousands to over 1 million stars. Throughout human history, people have connected widely spaced groups of stars to form figures or shapes. These become known as constellations. Some well-known constellations are Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, Gemini, Capricorn, Orion, and Pisces. In astronomy, however, the term signifies areas in the sky, not just specific shapes. Today, astronomers divide the sky into 88 constellation zones, with exact boundaries so that every direction or place in the sky belongs to a constellation. All modern constellation names are in Latin. The 12 most recognized ones are called the zodiac. So question there, is this a flying saucer? And some of the pictures at the bottom of your page. The Pleiades is a famous star cluster, easily visible with binoculars. Pleiades is an open cluster of over 3,000 stars surrounded by nebulas. This globular cluster, named M55, has around 100,000 stars. It's located in the Sagittarius constellation, about 20,000 light years away. Sounds like something from Star Wars. The star patterns people see today look very similar to the ones first identified and named thousands of years ago. Over much time, patterns will change. In addition, different constellations are seen depending on a person's location on the Earth, as well as the orbital position of the Earth. People living in one hemisphere see certain constellations that are not always visible on the other hemisphere. The apparent locations of constellations also change from season to season. Stars near the geographic poles, or circumpolar stars, can be seen at all times of year in that hemisphere. In the northern hemisphere sky, Ursa Major, or the Great Bear, contains all of the stars that make up that constellation, including the 7 stars of the Big Dipper. The Little Dipper is part of the constellation Ursa Minor and has Polaris, the North Star, at the end of its handle. Visible from the southern hemisphere, Crux, the Southern Cross, is smallest yet one of the most distinctive constellations in the sky. Outlook. Galaxy clusters contain galaxies, which are themselves filled with star clusters. Galaxy clusters occur in patterns similar to huge, irregular spider webs. Most galaxies that are within a galaxy cluster are along the strands of webs are about 500 million light years apart. Evolutionary astronomers explain this as the result of sound waves early in the Big Bang explosion. Astronomers who believe in the biblical account of creation believe that these patterns resulted from God's order and creativity. And it just gives you a sense of the expansiveness of our universe, that a lot of these things we're seeing, these little specks in the sky, are hundreds of thousands of light years away, which is pretty crazy and expansive, way more than our brains can wrap around. Which constellations are mentioned in the Bible? Centaurus, one of the largest constellations, is seen from the southern hemisphere. It contains Proxima Centauri and surrounds Crux on 3 sides. And so you can kind of see down at the bottom, you have the blue lines connecting different stars to show the pattern of the constellation. Orion, also known as the Hunter, is commonly visible in the northern sky. Its bright stars are Betelgeuse and Rigel, both supergiants. And so we can see it usually in the summer, and you can actually see it now, I'm pretty sure. There's Orion, it's usually called Orion's Belt, and it's 3 stars that are close to each other. And so that's part of that constellation. One thing I also just read is that there is a comet, a smaller comet that is going to be visible to the naked eye, meaning you don't need a telescope for it, coming this summer. It's mostly going to be seen in the southern hemisphere, Australia specifically, but they said as of June, we might be able to see it this far north in the summer sky. So that's something that we'll have to keep an eye on to see if we can see. When I was in middle school, there was a comet, Halley's Comet, which came around, and it's amazing because it lasts for days and days and days that we can see it. You can see it during the day, you can see it at night, and it just looks like this kind of stable blast of light in the sky, like a blurred star. If you look at it with a telescope, it's really fascinating. And what a comet is it's a ball of ice and dust and gases that has a tail on it because of the ice evaporating and causing this tail behind it. As it gets closer to the sun, it evaporates because it's ice. But it's really amazing to see a comet in the sky, and it's not something that we see often. So we'll have to keep an eye on the news and see if that's something that we can see from way up here north. You do not have a lab today, but one thing I would encourage you to do is to go on National Geographic on YouTube or another reputable site, NASA, and look up some videos on different constellations. Most, as I said, are in Latin. Many of the constellations are pictured after Greek mythology, so you can look that up. But it's really fascinating to be able to see the sky. If you have a phone that is a newer phone, or your parents do, there are apps that will actually, if you take it outside at night and you hold it up to the sky, it'll tell you what stars or planets are above you at that time and point out the constellations. So that's something that's pretty cool to see as well. So next time when we come together, we're going to be finishing up our chapter on constellations. So we're going to be finishing up with our chapter review. And if you're interested in space, if you're interested in astronomy, definitely research it some more. Find some videos, find some articles, read some books on space, because there's so much more that we are learning every single day about space as our technology gets better. So do your best to go and find some more information, watch some videos, get some visuals. If you have a telescope, go outside, look at some stars, and enjoy seeing God's creation.